The militant Palestinian group Hamas smashes into Israel, killing hundreds and triggering war. And the former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert blames the government. Should Netanyahu resign?
Yes.
Do you think he will?
He will be forced to.
Top of the list of priorities, how to rescue the scores of hostages kidnapped by Hamas. And as Israel tries to reseal its borders, can Israelis ever again trust their intelligence services and their much-vaunted army? Ehud Olmert, welcome to Conflict Zone.
Hi.
The late Israeli statesman Shimon Peres used to remind interviewers that his people lived in a very rough neighborhood. It's just got a whole lot rougher, hasn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately, as we have all witnessed in the last few days, the vicious attack of Hamas has been one of the most brutal that I think anyone can remember in modern history. This was an attack against civilians with an explicit purpose of killing as many people as possible in the most brutal and vicious way. And this is like the same as Daesh, except with a greater success, unfortunately, in comparison.
Do you believe this was a one-off invasion, a one-off attack, or could more be planned and from outside Gaza next time?
Well, I don't lose. Hamas is engaged in a conflict, violent conflict against Israel since its inception, for more than 25 years. And they don't want to make any peace with Israel. They don't want to recognize Israel. They don't have any territorial claims to Israel as may other Palestinians have in the West Bank. They just want to destroy the state of Israel. And I think that it is quite clear that they are inspired and operated by the Iranians. They are the long arm. Iran has a long arm in the south of Israel, which is Hamas, in the north of Israel, which is Hezbollah. And their attacks are part of a more comprehensive plan of Iran to upset the entire balance in the Middle East and to try and shake the foundations of the state of Israel.
Iran has denied any direct involvement, and the Americans themselves said they haven't seen, so far, any evidence to suggest they were involved. Is this a gut feeling on your part that they were involved, or the attack was in their interest? Do you have any evidence?
Yeah, we have some signs in Israel. I can't, of course, go into details, but we have some signs that it's been inspired and coordinated by Iran. The head of the Revolutionary Guards of Iran was visiting Lebanon just a few days before the attack. And as you know, the head of the operational activities of Hamas is based in Beirut. So there is a good reason to believe that they were cooperating and coordinating.
And if that were confirmed, would Israel take action, direct action against Iran?
I don't think that at the present time we have any plan to attack Iran in a comprehensive manner. I mean, with military, with planes, air attack or missile attack against Iran. This is not the first priority. Right now, what we have to do is to focus on the south part where it all started now. And in as long as Iran will not take part directly in a military action against the state of Israel, I doubt that we will initiate any attack against them.
One question seems to dominate at the moment, and that is what to do about the scores of Israeli hostages which have been kidnapped by the Palestinian Islamist group Hamas. What do you think the government will do about the hostages?
I must say, Tim, I'm not certain that I know, and I'm not certain that even if I knew that I would like to share it publicly with anyone, including you at this time, because I think it's very sensitive and really involves the lives of people. If they were capable of butchering, raping mothers, and then killing them and killing the babies in their homes, they will not hesitate to do the most brutal things against the Israelis that are now held by them in Gaza. So we certainly will do things. I doubt that there is any basis for negotiations with them, because I don't think that they want negotiations. I think that they want to release all the Palestinian prisoners in the state of Israel, which are held in Israel, and they will try to use the Israelis held by them as a trade, for a trade with this. What will be the reaction, how we will handle it, what will be the other activities that we may plan, what are the surprises that we are preparing. I think that this is not something that should be discussed.
If you were in power, would you do a deal with Hamas? Deals have been done. Prisoner swaps have been done in the past. There was Gilad Shalit in 2011. 1,000 Palestinian prisoners were released to get him home.
No. My answer is no. And this was my answer when I was prime minister. In a much, so to say, better deal was offered to me in exchange for Gilad Shalit at the time that I was prime minister, and I turned it down. I thought that we shouldn't make it, and that it's not worthwhile. And by the way, one has to remember, Tim, I'm not sure that you are aware of it, but all the leadership of Hamas today, which has been responsible for what they have perpetrated against us on Saturday, is made of the ex-prisoners that were released in the Gilad Shalit deal. So I think that turns out that that deal was bad when it was made in the first place, just the exchange of more than 1,000 prisoners for one soldier. But I think that the long-range outcome of this deal is really devastating from the point of view of Israel. And we have to be very careful in this kind of format, in this kind of pattern of deals. But that doesn't mean that there are not ways that exist to release the Israelis who are held by them. But again, as I said, I think it should be dealt with very delicately and not publicly.
Mr. Olmert, there's been plenty of talk about systemic failures in Israeli intelligence that led up to this attack, but you blame the government for this. You called it the outcome of the arrogance of the present government. Arrogance about what?
Well, I'll tell you two things, if I may. Number one, I think it will be a mistake. I don't mind that they will make it, by the way. But it will be a mistake to assume that the Israeli intelligence fails completely. Not at all. We saw everything. We have watched all their preparations, and it was one-on-one with everything that we have scanned and noticed and looked at for a long period of time. The problem was that we misled ourselves that they will not do it. Because of what you quoted, the kind of arrogance. Who are they? The Hamas, these terrorist organizations. They are not an army. They are not capable of doing things. They will not do it. You know, we are strong. We are threatening. We are powerful. We can stop everyone, and so on and so forth. And actually, a few days before the holiday, which Saturday is a Jewish holiday, and this was also the Sukkot holiday, which overlapped the same day, we pulled out a group of a few platoons of soldiers from Gaza, from that border, from this position, into the West Bank to protect the settlers in the West Bank at that time. So this was a reflection of the kind of indifference and complacency and arrogance which I think has characterized the attitude of the Israeli leadership. And that's why I put the blame on the Israeli leadership. Their focus was the West Bank. The focus was how to protect the settlers, the messianic Jews that are trying to upset the balance in the West Bank instead of protecting the Israeli citizens which live in the state of Israel, in a territory which is not disputed, which can be claimed by the Palestinians because we have evacuated entirely out of Gaza into a territory which is recognized by the international community to be part of the state of Israel. And the fact also is that for a period of time, for years, Netanyahu explicitly preferred to deal with Hamas in order not to have to deal with the Palestinian Authority. Why? Because he didn't want to negotiate peace with the Palestinian Authority, and therefore he put all the efforts in order to create a certain rapport with the Hamas. We know that the Hamas was financed with the assistance of Israel for years by hundreds of millions of dollars that came from Qatar, with the assistance of the state of Israel, with the full knowledge and support of the Israeli government led by Netanyahu. Netanyahu, when he took over in 2009, said that his primary responsibility and priority is to destroy Hamas. And throughout the period that he was prime minister, he made every possible effort in order to build Hamas rather than to destroy it. And in a certain way, the expansion of the Hamas and the strengthening of Hamas is largely also a result of this policy of Netanyahu.
Mr. Olmert, Israel can move into Gaza with the aim of rooting out Hamas, killing as many of its fighters as it can. But what then? This wouldn't be a cost-free operation for Israel. Far from it, would it?
It's very hard to answer this question. Number one, because if this is what Israel is going to do, I don't think that we should spell it out publicly and make an announcement that we are going to do this. We have to keep a certain degree of surprise if we can, which I don't know. I have to say, I'm not now in the government. I'm not in any official position. I'm outside. I can only judge it on the basis of my experience and my knowledge, being in the center stage for so many years and taking these decisions when I was in charge. I think, number one, it is definitely true that Hamas is the enemy and Hamas has to be dealt with. How to do it? By trying to penetrate into with the ground forces of Israel directly, frontally, as we have done in the past. I don't know. I don't want to join in this rhetoric. What I say is this is a long story. It's going to take time. It requires a very careful planning and a very calculated action. We have to do it in a manner that will bring forth practical results that will be useful for the security of the south part of the state of Israel, and yet at the same time will not antagonize the international community, which presently is very much sympathetic and in favor of the state of Israel. I'm afraid that if these attacks which have taken place over the last few days will continue and more buildings in Gaza will be destroyed and the smoke and the fire will spread all over the screen, and this will be broadcasted day in and day out all over the world, soon enough the emotion and the sympathy which has now spread all over the world in favor of the state of Israel will change. And Israel needs this framework of support in order to be able to achieve the strategic interests that we want to achieve.
The UN, the international community, has already expressed concern about the total siege electricity, water, food being blocked from going in. Would you have done that?
I don't want to say what I would have done. I said before, I can say what I wouldn't have done, but I'll tell you this. The humanitarian pressure might be a reasonable vehicle in order to create a separation between the civilian population, which is not involved, and the terrorist organizations. One of the problems that we encounter in this context is the relative flexibility and freedom that Hamas entertains in Gaza, because the civilian population, which may not necessarily be involved in terrorist actions, give them support. So how do you separate between the two? This is a question. Is this the way to do it? I'm not enough into the center of decision-making in order to answer this question, but I don't rule it out.
Let's talk, if we may, about the politics going on at this moment, what the government might do next. Is it right to form what they call a national unity government, or attempt to form one?
I'm not enthusiastic about it, to put it mildly. I don't think that any person that has a minimal respect for himself and for his values would want to sit with Ben-Gvir and with Smotrich and what they represent, in as long as they are central members of the government. One is the Minister of Finance and in charge of the territories. The other is the Minister of National Security, and as long as they are members of the cabinet, I would stay out.
Should Netanyahu resign?
Yes.
Do you think he will?
He will be forced to. It will take some time. It will take some time. You know, these kinds of reactions have to build up a certain momentum before they erupt in a force that is unstoppable. I remember, you're too young, so you can't, but I remember the Yom Kippur War years ago. When the war started with a terrible shock. It's true that subsequently Israel won the war, and as a result of the achievements, military achievements of Israel at the end of the day, we also created the circumstances that allowed eventually Israel and Egypt to make peace. But that didn't save the government of Golda Meir. 3 weeks or 4 weeks after the elections, after the war started, there was an election in Israel. And in the election, the party of Golda Meir won decisively. But 4 months later, they were forced to resign because the build-up of opposition in the public was too powerful for them to resist. And they had to resign. And I think that similar thing will happen sooner now than it was then. Netanyahu is history. He is done. He will continue to be prime minister for a short while, but he is gone. And for good reasons.
Mr. Olmert, whatever.
I thought so, Tim, I thought so before the war for other reasons. But I think that what we have witnessed in the last few days is just the ultimate proof for the accusations and the allegations we made against the efficiency, the focus of the government, the values of this government, and the ability of this government to abide by its commitments.
Whatever Hamas has done this time, it's very different in scale from anything it's attempted before. In your view, why did they launch this particular invasion, and why now? There's a strong suggestion around that they wanted to torpedo a peace deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia that would have left the Palestinians, they thought, further isolated in the cold. Do you buy that as a reason for what we've seen, what we've witnessed?
It's a legitimate interpretation. I don't know if this is true. I don't have the intelligence that can tell me whether this is something that they have deliberated. What I can say are two things. If they wanted to torpedo the agreement between America, Saudi, Arabia and Israel, then definitely for the time being, they have a measure of success. I don't know if this agreement will come through, but I don't think that the reason for doing it, if that's what they wanted to do, was because they thought that the Palestinians will be left over by this agreement. Maybe to the contrary. They were afraid that as a result of this agreement, there can be a basis that will force the Israeli government to negotiate with the PLO. And they don't want negotiations. You have to understand something. The worst enemy of Hamas is a potential peace between Israel and the Palestinians. So if the agreement with Saudi Arabia, America, and Israel may have somehow uplifted the chances for some contacts between the Israeli government and the Palestinian Authority, between Netanyahu and Abu Mazen, that may have led into meaningful negotiations, this was the threat that they wanted to break, because they don't care for the Palestinians to be left over. On the contrary, they want the Palestinians to be left over because this is what gives them the kind of appeal to the Palestinian population.
You've always supported a two-state vision, but you couldn't make it work when you were prime minister, although you said this week, I would have made peace with Abu Mazen a long time ago.
Yeah, I was very...
Is the two-state concept finished now, as far as you're concerned? No?
No. Look, there is no other solution. There is only a solution, or a one-state solution. A one-state solution means that Israel will be a binational state with millions of Palestinians living within the state of Israel, and almost inevitably, even if Ben-Gvir and Smotrich will oppose it, and the factions in the Israeli population that support them will oppose it, will have to give all the Israelis, or all the Palestinians that will live within the state of Israel, full rights, political rights, voting rights, and whatnot. And that will create a terrible confrontation of a much worse kind than what we have witnessed on Saturday, because then they will be within the state of Israel, part of the state of Israel. They will have also the benefit of political votes and rights on the one hand, and the freedom to do whatever they want to do in opposition to the state of Israel, because they don't want to be part of the state of Israel. They want to have their own independent state and to exercise their right of self-determination. So I think that the worst dream that we may have is one state solution. And therefore, the only alternative which can bring a certain degree of stability on the long run, not immediately, of course, not in a matter of few years, it will take time. It will be very difficult for both sides to go over the 55 or 60 years of occupation. But this is the only option. If I may say just one more thing in this respect, I hope, and I spell it out in the most clear manner to all the friends of Israel, that when we are through with the present crisis, that the same friends of the state of Israel that support us now and give Israel the moral freedom to take very severe actions against the Hamas will come back to Israel and say, and now you have to do what needs to be done in order to provide the Palestinians in the West Bank and the Palestinian Authority with the freedom to exercise their right for self-determination, which means for a two-state solution.
Very briefly, because we're running out of time, how scared are you right now for your country?
I'm not scared for the country. Israel is a very strong country. We have an unbelievably powerful civil society, unbelievably powerful civil society. And I absolutely trust in the strengths, determination, the enthusiasm, and the devotion which is manifested on these days by all sections of population.
All right.
I'm scared of the Israeli government. I'm scared of this group of thugs, violent, messianic thugs, run by a reckless, irresponsible person, Netanyahu, which is leading the state of Israel. We have to get rid of them, and we have to get rid of Hamas. First of Hamas, and then we will have to make order within the state of Israel.
All right. Ehud Olmert, thank you very much for being on Conflict Zone. Thank you.
Thank you.